don't think I do it.
Arsenal started like a house on fire. Signing number 2 for this new era. It's Judgment Day, people. Yeah! What did your boy tell you? It was never in doubt. Never in doubt. Don't believe in any love, I believe I'm self-made, yeah. Then people, welcome back to the Just Joe Football Show. And do you know what? As I was waiting for the tunes to finish then, I got a little bit of a somber feeling because it's dawned on me that this is probably going to be the last Premier League opposition preview that I'll do for at least a season. At least a season. You know, and it's going to be hard to find Plymouth fans and Rotherham fans to be able to do these, I'd imagine. So, yeah, I'm a little bit sad about that. So, to cheer me up, make sure you smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, get your comments in, hit the notification bell. And, of course, make sure you follow my lovely guest today. It is, of course, Matt Hayes from the Tottenham blog. His link is in the description to this video. You all know Matt. He sometimes comes in the chat as well, so there's a lot of love for Mr. Matthew Hayes. Matt, how are you doing, pal? All right?
I'm good. I'm good. If we exclude anything related to football, I'm absolutely fantastic. And I actually covered Plymouth for 6 months at work before, so if you ever need a fan, I'll be here twice a season for you next year.
Yeah, I love that. As long as you go Green Army every now and again.
Happy to.
Yeah. How are they then? How are Plymouth? Are they good?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I'm, to be honest, surprised that they managed to win the League One because they're actually a little bit like Spurs where they do have a bottle job in them at times. But no, they're great season, play good football, lost a few players, but yeah, hopefully that won't be your problem next season.
No. I hope, well, I don't know. I think we will lose many players, I think, pal. We will lose many players. And I am convinced that we will drop down to the Championship. Mate, we'll talk about Spurs then. We'll get stuck into it. I know you'll have loads to say. I guess we'll start with the most recent news because you were linked to Arne Slot that Leeds United tried to get in January. And naturally, I mean, it made sense that he wasn't going to come in January with the predicament Leeds were in and the fact that he was fighting on all fronts for Feyenoord at the time. But I did believe, and I'd said even before he was linked to Spurs, that I could see him moving to a club like that, especially when you consider you missed out on Ten Hag. Similar sort of vibe, you could say. So it's like, yeah, it made sense. And then we found out today that he's turned Spurs down, if you like. And I know there was the link to Rodgers, which sort of you're not on board with. I think I said, you know, it seems a bit of a nothing story at the minute. But then there's also been Ange Postecoglou linked in the last hour or so as well. So what are your thoughts on the current manager's search? And are you a bit surprised that Slot's turned Spurs down?
Look, the manager hunt up until this morning, I think, was going the way the Tottenham had planned. Right. The issue that we had a couple of years ago when we ended up at the door of Nuno Espirito Santo was every manager that we kind of made a move for, it became very, very public. And when things didn't work out, which I mean happens in negotiations all the time. I'm sure there's managers that we spoke to already this time around that didn't work out. But when every bit of what you do goes public, there's a lot of embarrassment that comes with that. And I think maybe excluding the whole situation around how the Nagelsmann story fell apart, I think Spurs did quite well in being able to keep things behind closed doors until Arne Slot, which I assume came from the fact that they were confident that he would be the next manager. And last night we were getting stories out from the Netherlands that Slot's agent met with Feyenoord yesterday and had told them that he wanted to leave and that it was all about negotiations to see how much it would cost Tottenham. And then this morning Slot does an interview and says, "No, I'm staying. Nothing's happening." Which is really confusing. And to be honest, I don't know, did Slot turn us down? Did we say we didn't want the compensation? Did Feyenoord say we're not negotiating? I don't think anyone really knows at the moment why it has fallen apart, but the simple fact of the matter is that it has. And, you know, 3 weeks ago, I knew...
Just before you move on, it's quite interesting you say that because there was a lot of that with Leeds United, and then he did a presser and just said, "No, I'm not leaving." And when you hear it from the horse's mouth, you're like, all right, okay, well, that's that done then, isn't it? Because all of it is speculation, but it wasn't until he actually came out and did a pre-match presser and said, "I am not leaving," you know what I mean? So it sounds like a similar sort of situation that you found yourself in.
For sure. And it's definitely been the last 12, 24 hours where things have changed because They played FC Emmen in the Eredivisie on Sunday, and it was last Friday. And then after the game on Sunday, in his pre and post match press conferences, every question was about Spurs, and he was getting every question twice in Dutch and in English. And he was very tight-lipped, and he was given the answers of a man who was leaving. You know, I'm not going to say anything. I can't speak about this. I've this season focus on. And even in his presser on Sunday, he asked for clarity. He said it's better for everyone that we know what's happening sooner rather than later. So I think he was on board the move for Spurs, but apparently Feyenoord have asked for 20 million for him, and he's only 2 years left in his contract, which in itself is only worth 6 million. So I think that's maybe where things started to unravel. But yeah, it does seem pretty similar to what happened there with Leeds. But now, you know, we're at a situation where going for Slot in the first place was a risk. As good as a manager he is, and as well as he's done at Alkmaar and at Feyenoord, he's a manager who hasn't been at the level of the Premier League. And it was a risk because you never know how he's going to make that step up. And in order to take that risk, we never called Pochettino when he was sitting on a beach in Barcelona for 6 weeks waiting for his phone to ring. And we turned down Nagelsmann because he wanted a bit of a different structure with regards to our sporting director to what we were looking at.
What do you make to that Nagelsmann one? Because surely he was the one, right?
Yep.
I don't understand why Spurs sort of negated on that. Like,
yeah, it's the most confusing development of the whole thing so far, because I can see you know, Pochettino is to me what Bielsa is to you, Joe. You know, yeah, I love him, and I think I owe every good thing I've seen in our football club. I owe to him. So
at least I don't have to watch him at my rivals next year,
exactly.
Bro. Like, you must be in so much
weird dislike for Uruguay. Yeah, it's shocking. But I wanted nothing more than for him to come back this summer. But I can see the logic behind not going back. And while a lot of the squad that's there now is still the same squad that let him down 4 years ago, I can see the logic behind not making that move. But for Nagelsmann, if he wanted the move, I can't see a reason to not make that happen, because you can look at the way things went down when he was sacked with Bayern Munich earlier this season. But I only tweeted it out a couple of days ago. Bayern sacked Nagelsmann because they were worried that their quadruple was under threat. And now it looks like they're going to finish the season with one trophy. And that only trophy is the one Nagelsmann won. Yeah, it's the trophy he won before he was sacked. It's crazy. And as much as I obviously like to judge a manager when they're at the club, I think you can always judge them based on the club's trajectory after they leave. And clearly Nagelsmann was doing better than Tuchel at Bayern Munich. But I think maybe what could have happened is we had our list that was made up before Conte was ever sacked. We do know that. And then once Nagelsmann was sacked by Bayern Munich, that just threw the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit, because Tuchel was high on our list. He ended up going to Bayern. Then we kind of have a look at Nagelsmann. Where does he fit in on this list? But it just seems as though he wanted a sporting director very similar to the setup that is there at Bayern Munich and what he had with Ralf Rangnick at Leipzig. Whereas Tottenham, having just lost Paratici, have brought in a chief football officer in Scott Munn from the City Group. So our structure is going to be a little bit different there. Yeah. And maybe it's something that Nagelsmann doesn't want to work with. But when the job of manager of Spurs is becoming the poison chalice that it has become, you can't afford to let go of someone like Nagelsmann on a technicality like that. So that for me was the biggest setback in this so far. And 3 weeks ago, I didn't know anything about Arne Slot, and today I was devastated that he's not becoming our manager. It's a weird effect that this sort of stuff has on you, but we're back at square one. I couldn't even hazard a guess as to who our manager is going to be at this point.
Yeah. There's loads I want to unpack there, because I see. Do I see similarities? No, I don't. I think that's mad of me to say, because Tottenham are up here and we're down there. But just, you mentioned a lot of the players being the same, and I seen something the other day. I don't know if it was potentially Eric Dyer might be getting a contract extension, something along those lines, which I thought was insane anyway. And then there was also a link to this leadership group, or a committee, if you like, and that. We've discovered at Leeds United, that's been a bit of a poison chalice for us. Like, I cannot wait for this so-called leadership group to be ripped up. I don't know if it was there during Bielsa's time. I don't think it was. Of course, you have your elder statesmen of players, if you like, but Jesse was big on it. And even when Big Sam did his presser, he said, I spoke to the committee. And I'm a bit like, these managers need to be coming in and making decisions, not having to relay to a select group of players. And I just feel... it sounds like that's what's going on at Spurs, and maybe a bit like Leeds, there's been a reluctance to get rid of these, we call them the players that got us up, if you like. And I'm still big on them. I still love Bamford. I still love Ayling, whereas a lot of fans just want them gone. But do you see that as being an issue as well? And are you surprised at players like Dyer getting a new deal? It seems insane to me, Matt.
Yeah, I think it signifies a culture of putting too much importance on what players do off the pitch, because look, there's been so many managers in Spurs. There's been Pochettino, Jose, Nuno, Ryan Mason, and Antonio Conte, where they've all had Dyer
Don't forget
and Stellini. My bad, the greatest manager I've ever seen in the Spurs dugout. They've all relied on Eric Dyer, and they've all given him the game time, and he's been an important part of all of their squads. But that's clearly not to do with what's happening on the pitch. And you could even go to say the same with Southgate and some of his selections, bringing Dyer into the England squad. There's clearly a reason why managers value him, but there's only so much that your work off the pitch can do. When on the pitch, you are a liability to the team that you're playing with. And what's very interesting about the whole Dyer thing is it kind of leaked in the media maybe 3-4 weeks ago that he was in talks for a new 3-year contract, and then
3 years
slowly,
as well.
3 years, yeah. It's slowly started ramping up to, this looks like it could happen. But as soon as there was that backlash from the fans, all of a sudden there's journalists coming out and saying, well, it's not that close. It kind of seems like it was almost a bit of a test. But for that leadership group, as far as I know, it's Hugo Lloris, Eric Dyer, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Harry Kane, and I think Oliver Skipp has kind of been making his way in there in the last couple of weeks and months as well.
But you look at Lloris now and you think maybe you've kept on to him a little bit longer than you should have as well, eh?
Yeah, the whole point of the next manager that we want to bring in is to transform the culture that is in this dressing room and that is in this squad, that's in this club as a whole, because it's a culture of failure. It's a culture of mediocrity, which for a club the size of Tottenham Hotspur shouldn't be happening. And I just don't see how useful it is to have these new managers coming in if there is going to be the same core group of players that are having such a big effect on what the manager is doing. And I do think the next manager who comes in, and I thought it fits slot really well because he gave Orkun Kukçu the captaincy of Feyenoord last season, who was only 21 years of age. But with Lloris leaving this summer, the next manager coming in has the opportunity to make a statement with who he makes the next manager. And I'm just interested to see how that might affect this leadership group within the squad. But it's not something you hear about very often, so it is a little bit strange to me.
It does my head in, mate. It almost, whenever I hear of it, I think of Chelsea and how much player power the likes of Lampard, Drogba and Terry and that had. And I'm not saying it's anywhere close to that level because they literally ran that football club at times, I felt, from the outside. But yeah, Big Sam's first presser, when he mentioned it, I thought a bit like, why is Big Sam allowing this? But he's only there for 4 games, so I don't think he's really asked. But I'm a bit like you. I just want it ripped up and be done with and start again, if you like. And I guess that's where I see the similarities between both football clubs. Unfortunately, it looks like Leeds United might be in the EFL doing theirs. But the reason I say that for you is because I've been saying it for a while, Matt. I think Tottenham's future as a top 6 club is severely, I'd even go as far as to say 6. I definitely think top 4 is now gone for the foreseeable future. Obviously, stranger things happen, but I look at the teams up there now. Obviously, Arsenal have returned. You've got Manchester United. Chelsea will come good. You've got City. You've got Liverpool. There's already 5. You then, for me, now have to throw in Villa and Newcastle. Of course, Newcastle got top 4 this season. So I look at Spurs and think they're in a really dangerous position because you've got all that money with the stadium and all that sort of stuff. And what happens next for Spurs? Is it mid-table, bro? And is that acceptable, really?
It's definitely not acceptable. I mean, to be honest, I've actually stopped looking at the league table this season, so I'm not sure where we're going to finish. But I think it could be as low as 9th.
You and Villa, Conference League, I think.
Do you know what? We could finish 9th if Brentford pick up a point on the last day of the season, and when you guys beat us, I'm adamant on that. We could finish 9th. Which, when you look at how we started the season, this will blow some people's mind to remember. This season, we had our best ever start to a Premier League season. We had our best ever start. Up in October, November, we were right up there neck and neck with Manchester City and Arsenal. And things just fell apart very, very quickly. And it's just the way it's been at Spurs. And I think it's maybe not as easy to notice a cycle because there has been some crazy time frames. Like for Pochettino, things are going well for 4 or 5 years, but it did ultimately fall apart. For Conte and Jose, it was only about 12 months it was going well. And for Nuno, it was by the time he crossed the T's in his signature that things started to go wrong. So that's where the culture of the club needs to be changed. And I don't think it's going to happen with the current ownership that is there. No. Because there's been a few moments in the last couple of years, it kind of started when Jose came in, where it felt as though Daniel Levy was relinquishing some of the power on the footballing side of things, giving it to people who clearly know it better than him. But every time that he's done that, when things have started to go wrong, he's gone back into his ways of micromanagement and just made things 100 times worse. because he is, I will always say it, an absolutely incredible businessman. There's a reason that he's made Spurs from what £300 million club they bought to one in a £1 billion stadium. Yeah. He's a brilliant businessman, but he does not know football to any extent. And he just has this knack for making horrendous decisions. Like we brought in Fabio Paratici as a director of football 2 years ago at this stage. It was a big, exactly. At the time, it seemed a big move for Spurs, bringing in someone who did so well at Juventus. Yeah. But now we found out that Daniel Levy was aware of the investigations that were ongoing and just thought it was going to blow over. And look at the position that's put us in now. You know, we're without a director of football, but also you can bet your bottom dollar that there's going to be magnifying glasses on the deals that we did with Juventus in the last couple of years, and there's 3 of them there. So he just makes the wrong decision every time it comes down to something important that needs to happen, and it's the trajectory of the football club. You know, we're taking 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and you know it's the top 4 in the big 4 in English football over the last 20 years or so has been Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, United. City have broken in there because they've unlimited financial backing behind them. Newcastle potentially could be breaking in there because of their unlimited financial backing, and there's been quite a few clubs that have come near it over the last however long. Like Aston Villa were fighting for Europe 10 years ago. Well, weren't they? Leicester, they won the league. Yeah. Look at them now, Hilux. I think even
I love that. He's in the chat at the right time.
That was perfect timing. Right? But even that year, the Villa were fighting us for top 6. Bolton were up there as well. So there are clubs who do get near it.
And us once upon a time.
Yes, long time ago, Joe. Yes. But you get up there, but when you don't have that incredible financial backing, you fall away. And maybe just for Spurs, it's been a thing where we've been there and we've managed to hold on for a little bit longer than most clubs do. But it could just be that we are in that kind of best of the rest group, that we're just overperforming for a certain amount of time. And that's going to be something quite difficult to stomach.
And you've got to, that's what I'm saying. You had an opportunity to win the league, for example, when Leicester won it. That's back to you, Locks, there. But there is them opportunities, though, right? And it's same with Leicester in the sense, and I'd said this to Locks before, like, you get that top 4. If they get that top 4, them 2 seasons under Brendan Rodgers, they're in a totally different position. Look what happened with Leeds. We got loads of loans out on the basis that we'd get Europe. We didn't get Europe. We ended up going down to League One, you know what I mean? So we can all relate, I guess, in that respect. I just want to get you, because there's loads I want to chat about, to be fair, mate. But you were speaking about Daniel Levy, and it just reminds me of like the Spurs documentary on Amazon, whichever it was, when Danny Rose says, "I will tell Daniel," you know, and it was a bit like, why does that matter? Like, Jose is the man. I'm going to speak to Daniel as well. I remember that, and it made me laugh, but Jose has been speaking in the last 24 hours or so, hasn't he? I don't know if you've seen that, he said the only club that I have no relationship with is Spurs. What are your thoughts? Do you know what? I look back now and say, and maybe it's with hindsight, but he's an I still think he's one of the best, Matt. I still think he's one of the best. And it still baffles me that you brought in Ryan Mason for the opportunity of silverware, because say what you want, City are unbelievable, but you would have had a much better chance with Jose in that final. Do
you know why we sacked him when we did?
Yeah, it's the money, wasn't it? If you want to,
it was. The reason was if we qualified for Champions League football, there'd be a big clause in his contract to sack him. But it was the Sunday night before we sacked him, the whole Super League stuff happened, and we were kicked out of the European Club Association. So on a technicality, at that point, we couldn't qualify for Champions League. So the next morning, Daniel Levy sacked him and didn't have to pay that clause because it was impossible for us to get Champions League. And he did that on the eve of a Carabao Cup final. And Jose, he said that in his comments, where he said, maybe the reason I don't have that relationship with the club is because the president didn't let me win a trophy. And that just shows exactly where Daniel Levy's priorities are.
That is mad, though, isn't it? It is. Rather than win silverware, he thought, I can't afford to pay that, I'm out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just all the money for him. And look, I said it from the day he was sacked, and I say it now. I don't think Jose would have won that final. I think City were just so much better than us at that point. But he would have had a chance. Ryan Mason had one game in professional management before that cup final, which was against Southampton. And to be fair, it was only 1-0 in the end. So maybe City were off it that day, and a Jose team could have managed to grab something in it. But to make that decision shows exactly where his priorities are and shows exactly what he's in his football club for. And actually, he did the kind of Harvard interviews they do where they get these famous, successful people in. And Levy was asked about it, and he said buying Tottenham was an investment opportunity for him. And
yeah, I've seen that.
More.
I watched that. There was like was there a clip or a program on not too long ago? I think I watched a little bit of it. Yeah.
And he said it was an investment opportunity. This is someone who is apparently a Spurs fan all his life. You know, he comes into the club as an investment opportunity. Look, I there are some people who say to me at times, if you look at where Spurs were when he came in, we're struggling to fill White Hart Lane. We were, fighting relegation in the late 90s, early 2000s. We were really, really down there. And Daniel Levy managed to bring us to a Champions League final. What I say to that, first of all, is he got lucky with the Pochettino appointment. Nobody thought Poch was going to be as good as he was. No. And Levy actually nearly sacked him after 4 months until Kane scored a free kick against Villa in the last minute that kind of saved Poch's skin. But even if you want to give Levy the credit for what he's done with our training ground, with the kind of global brand in Asia and America, which is going really well for Spurs at the moment, with the stadium and all that, there's still a ceiling to what he can achieve. And for me, the ceiling is what probably was 4 or 5 years ago. He doesn't have what it takes to bring this club to a level where it's going to be successful, but he's not going to make that decision to move on to let someone else take over because he's getting paid too much money for it. During COVID, he put all the club staff on furlough and he gave himself a raise. That's just the type of person he is. He wants money out of this football club and nothing more.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting you say that because it's just come to my mind there. Obviously, the links have come out again to QSI. I've seen it at Spurs as well. Obviously, we have a long-standing sort of like, not relationship, but obviously Radrazani's worked with QSI in the past with the Asar Academy over in Qatar. Yeah, over in Qatar. And we always thought, maybe he'll come to Leeds. But obviously, we've jumped in bed with the San Francisco 49ers, and it looks like they're going to take over. But in the last couple of hours, I don't know if people are just connecting the dots, but they're saying there's the potential that because QSI, a bit like the City Group, want to own a few clubs. I think they own Braga in Portugal. They're looking to jump in with Radrazani, who's buying Sampdoria. They're also saying there's potential that maybe they'll get involved with Leeds. But I know there's been a lot of links to Spurs in the past as well. Do you know much on that? Would you welcome that, pal?
Look, it's
morally aside.
Morally, I'd be against it. I wouldn't want it to happen.
No,
but
I get that.
I'm also not going to say if it did happen, I'd stop supporting the club because it's not going to happen. I mean, I could sit there and say it, but it wouldn't be true. At the end of the day, it's still Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. I think we need investment no matter what it is, and that thing with QSI, I think it was maybe back in January. That news came out. It was actually Ben Jacobs, who I think is a friend of this channel as well. I was actually on a podcast with Ben the next day, so I got some really, really good insight into what exactly that was. But it was very, very early and very, very preliminary talks. And what's come up recently again is that if Sheikh Jassim doesn't manage to get United, if Ratcliffe wins that bidding, that he might then look at Spurs as another opportunity for him. So look, I think that maybe is what Levy and the owners are looking for long term, because they've made this club a money maker beyond what you could possibly imagine. I mean, we're making 3, 4, 5 million per match day just from stuff that's sold at the stadium. I mean, it's a huge financial powerhouse at this point. So I'm kind of hopeful that maybe where this is all going towards is selling this club for a massive, massive profit, which I do think is possible. But you do have to say as well, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. We could get rid of Daniel Levy and we could have an owner who's a lot worse. Now, we could have an owner like who's got in at Newcastle, who has an incredible relationship with the fans, who was backing the manager, who's made a brilliant managerial decision, bringing in Eddie Howe, despite the fact that I said it was wrong and I thought I was right. So look, maybe that is the way we need to go, and maybe that's where the improvements come. But it's impossible to tell because you don't know who's going to be coming in and taking the keys next.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's my worry as well. Like, I do want rid of Rats, right? But like, you just don't know, do you? You just don't know. Like, I do think the 49ers are a respectable group and stuff. But if you look across the Premier League, American investment hasn't always worked. You've just to look at the Glazers at Manchester United, for example, So it's
even
not
FSG at Liverpool.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, they still won the Premier League and Champions League.
They did, but that wasn't from their doing as much as it was Klopp's.
No, that is fair. That is fair. Right, I just want to dial it back because I wrote this down as you were speaking about it. This leadership group, obviously one of the names being Harry Kane. It wouldn't be Spurs if we didn't talk about Harry Kane. I'm convinced he's going to Manchester United, pal. There's been links to maybe Real Madrid, Bayern as well. Do you think that he will pull on the lily white shirt next season, first and foremost?
I go back and forth on this every day.
Does it keep you up at night, Matt? Does it keep you up at night?
There's much more about this club that keeps me up at night, Joe. I'll tell you that for nothing. I'll say if he isn't going to be wearing a Spurs jersey next season, the only one I can see him wearing is Manchester United. For me, he finishes his career in the Premier League. There's no chance of him going to Real Madrid, no chance of him going to Bayern Munich.
It'd be crazy for him to bail and negate the chance of breaking that record. Like, it'd be mental. Yeah,
it would be. I know winning trophies with the team is what football's all about, but if he can go to United and win a few domestic cups and break Shearer's record, for me that's 100 times better than going and winning a couple of Bundesligas. You know?
Do you know what it is as well, Matt? Like, I know Shearer did win the Premier League with Blackburn all them years ago, but people don't remember him for that.
Exactly.
They don't remember Shearer as being a trophy winner. They remember him because he only won the Premier League, right? I don't think he won anything outside of that, which is still an amazing feat, don't get me wrong. But we all remember Alan Shearer for his goals. So if Harry Kane was to leave and not win a single trophy in England, then he would be battered for it. And it would tarnish it. So I think Harry knows that as well. He could go to Man United and not win a job. But if he breaks the record, look at Shearer now, how he's regarded. Harry Kane will be exactly the same.
For Alan Shearer, winning the Premier League is a footnote, which is a crazy thing to say. It's he's a record Premier League scorer, and didn't he win the league with Blackburn in '95?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like you mentioned, absolutely. It's the argument that I've been putting forward for so long. You don't remember Shearer for the Premier League title. I do think though, in the age of social media, the way footballers are judged has changed so much. Harry Kane, for him, he could go and score 300 goals in the Premier League. He could go and become Tottenham's record goal scorer by another couple of hundred goals. Or he could go to United and he could score a couple of hundred for them as well. But if he doesn't win that trophy, that's what he's going to be. That's what he's going to be seen as, the guy who didn't win the trophy. And I can understand that criticism to some extent, but when you go and you break so many individual records, like this season, he's become the first Premier League player to score 100 goals both at home and away. He's become the player to score in the most amount of games in a 38-game season. He scored the most headed Premier League goals. Like, it may sound like nothing, but in 10, 15 years' time, we're going to look at the record books. For European football, it's going to be Messi, Ronaldo, Ronaldo, Messi, Messi, Ronaldo. English football is going to be Kane. And that's an incredible accomplishment. But I think it's going to be so difficult for him on a mentality level to know that people are going to think of him as the guy who battled his career at Spurs and never won a trophy. And that's going to be the main reason that he'll make that move. Because I've no doubt one FA Cup with Spurs would mean more than 5 trophies at Man United, or 6 trophies at City, or 7 trophies at Liverpool. And he's all but said that himself. But A, looking at how much we're messing up this managerial search, and B, the way that he will feel he'll be remembered are going to be a big factor. Yeah. But it does come down to how much money Man United are willing to offer, because I think it will take close to 100 million to get him out of Spurs this summer. And if you're United...
Daniel Levy's such a shrewd operator in that respect, isn't he? How long's he got left on his deal, Matt?
A year. It's up at the end of next season. He'll be walking for free next summer. Yeah.
And you still think that Levy will demand that kind of cash?
Yeah, because he's too stubborn. He's too stubborn. He'd rather see him go next season and hope that Kane can carry us back into the Champions League, where the prize money would get us back a fair chunk of that 100 million. It's not going to happen. We'll be so far from the top 4 next season. I think from a United perspective, if you're quoted 100 million pounds for Kane this summer, there's no reason why you should take that. You wait a year and you maybe give Kane 30 million as signing on bonus next season, and maybe within that you might be able to get Victor Osimhen this summer as well. Napoli have just lost Spalletti. I think a few of their players might be walking out of there. There's much better business that United can do this summer and still get Kane next summer, and they're probably up there with Manchester City at that point if they just strengthen in the middle of the park as well. So
the only club actually, when I come to think of it as you're speaking there, the only club daft enough to pay that money this summer is where your favourite manager is, though.
Yeah. Oh, Joe.
Chelsea. No, it's true though, isn't it, bro? Let's be honest. If Man United go, we're going to wait, for a fact Todd Bowley will go, I'll give you 100 million. That's fine. Here, have it.
Yeah. Pochettino said when he left PSG that there was a few times in some of the transfer windows that Leonardo said to him, "Will we get you Harry Kane?" And Poch actually said that he couldn't do that to Tottenham. Like he couldn't take Kane away from Spurs. But after what we've done to him this summer, not even lifting the phone to give him a call, I don't think that loyalty is there anymore, and I don't blame him for it either. Would Kane make the move to Chelsea? I think he's a bit more loyal than that, but I also think he's coming to the last maybe 4 or 5 years where he's at the top level. He can't really choose to be picky, and he's got 3 young kids, I think 4 young kids, including a newborn. If he has a chance to stay in London, not even have to move house and go and be successful, I think that's something that will appeal to him a lot more than it would have 12 months ago, which does terrify me.
100%. And players, when they do get to the end of the contract, it's like, right, where's my next big final contract coming from? Because after that, the money starts to go down. You know, your career starts to wane. So, like you say, if Man United, I guess it's a bit like the Mudryk thing. Man United could say all this to him, but if they're not willing to pay the cash, then someone like Chelsea can go, well, there's the cash. You're coming to us. It is what it is. I'd be gutted for you as well, mate, to be honest, if I seen Kane lining up at Chelsea. I can't lie. I'm Man United for that fact because I don't like them either. But just moving on slightly then, mate, obviously playing Leeds at the weekend at Ellen Road. I know you seem pretty confident that Leeds United are going to win. It's mad, really, because I can't see any situation where we even win this game. I'm done this season. I mean, it's taken me 37 games to get to that point, but
You're confident, Joe.
I've finally admitted defeat, mate. Obviously, Spurs playing for the Conference League. First and foremost, do you want that, mate? Because I know Villa fans are like, please win, because for them to get Europe, it'd be huge. You don't want it at all?
Yeah, I mean, how long's it been since Villa were in Europe? Yeah. It'll be huge for them. The only way I can see us benefiting from the Conference League is if we just put the kids out there and give them some experience of first-team football. Yeah. You know, we were in the Conference League, God, it was only last season. We couldn't even get out of the group, which is incredibly embarrassing. But I think the acclaim that comes with a Conference League win isn't as... It's not worth what you have to do to get through the season, because a Thursday night, Sunday afternoon calendar, we've seen it for the last decade. It kills teams. It really takes all the energy out of you when you're going out and playing on a Sunday. It's not worth it, because we win the Conference League. We say, oh, we finally won a trophy, and people say, yeah, but it's only the Conference League. You know, it doesn't. For what we need is much more than that. And yes, it gets us into the Europa League, which is one step closer to the Champions League again, but. The Europa League, I'd be able to stomach, but the Conference League, just not again. Not again. I can't do it.
No, I know. And do you know, the mad thing is as well, another rival of yours, like West Ham potentially could go and win it. Do you know what I mean? So they'll have that to rub in your face as well, mate. Yeah. So it's just not been a good season for Spurs, has it, mate? Let's be honest. Yeah. Who is your pick for? Would you be happy with Ange Postecoglou or?
See, I kind of put all my eggs in the slot basket, to be honest. I was fully on board that train. I think Ruben Amorim would be a good appointment. Yeah. I'm not sold on Postecoglou because managers just don't have a good record coming from Scotland to the Premier League. I mean, the only one who kind of did a good job of it was Rodgers. And look at that now.
Do you want Rodgers?
Oh God, no.
See, he's been linked to Leeds. Like, I'd take him, but if we drop down, 100%. But do you? Because I've been saying this on my channel, I don't think his ego allows him to drop to the Championship with Leeds. Do you?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Because there's just something.
I said this, Matt. Right? I said this last night. I said if Slot gets the Spurs job, this was before today, obviously. I says Brendan Rodgers will sit and wait, because if a job at the top half of the table goes tits up and he's not working, he'll be the first manager that teams go to, I believe. So I don't see him agreeing to come to Leeds. I don't.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think the only thing that might work in your favour is he needs something to get his stocks back up a little bit. Yeah. So if he can go to Leeds and maybe have a season there and get you back up, I think his stocks are right back up where they were before the Leicester disaster class. But if he came to Spurs, I think I'd pack it in. I'd focus on the Formula One.
Right, mate. Let's talk about Leeds United then. Obviously, first and foremost, are you going to miss me? Are you going to miss us?
Joe, I'm convinced you'll be here next season. I'm telling you, you're beating us. You're beating. No, if you do go down, of course I'll miss you. I'll still be in the live chat. Yeah. But of course I'd miss you. Come on, Joe.
Good. Because Matt, let's say we beat you, right? We then need Everton to lose. We then need Leicester to lose or draw. So I just don't see how that's going to happen.
What's goal difference like if Everton draw?
If Everton draw, I think it might be a couple of goal swing.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be a couple of goal swing, I think. But I mean, Leicester's on -18, I think. So Leicester would need to beat you about 9-0, if I'm honest. So yeah, I think if Everton drew, then I think we'd need to beat you about 3 or 4-0, and that's not going. It's not going to happen, mate. We can only play for 20 minutes at a time.
Look, I don't know what lineup Spurs are going to go out with on Sunday. You know, there could be a statement there to be made. Some of the first team players we could. It's not impossible that we play a few of the kids. But yeah, I've watched probably more of Leeds in the last 6 or 7 weeks than I have of any other club. And I think I messaged you I think it was at half-time in the game against Palace, or it might have been maybe 30, 40 minutes into that game against Palace. I put it in the... Am I not important enough to you, Joe?
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to get it so that we can have this next to us. I don't know why it's done that. Right, there we go.
There we go.
Sorry.
Yeah, but that game against Palace, you were phenomenal in the first half.
Yes,
and I think I said it about you and Oscar. It's like watching Manchester City. And there's been a few games, the start against Leicester, I think, as well, when you went 1-0 up. You have these spells in you where you play extremely good football.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, you sit back. And I'll be honest, I don't think that's Sam Allardyce. That might seem, I don't know if it's more of a common view in the fan base.
Yeah, no, I thought it was, but having seen Luke Ayling's interview after the game at the weekend, he basically said, Matt, that teams used to fear us for our running, teams used to fear us, and he said we now just don't have it in their legs anymore, and that's all down to that's all down to your man Jesse Marsh, because basically what he did is he just turned everything down 50%. He said they were overtrained, which, to be fair, that was their redeeming qualities, because skill-wise, a lot of them would have never made it to the Premier League. The one thing that got them through was this style, this system, and the persistent fitness that we had. You know, we never stopped. You know what I mean? We'd still be trying to score goals at the 90th minute. You know, and the game had already been won. But now that's gone. So we seem to have about 20 minutes in us, and then they've just fecked mentally and physically, mate.
Do you know what? It's so similar to Spurs. This could be a barnstorming first half, and then they don't even come out for the second half. They're so similar. I think with the possible lineups that are here, the one thing I will say is Eric Dyer, he's out. He's had surgery on his groin. Hopefully, he's played his last game for the club.
He's getting a 3-year deal, mate. He's getting a 3-year deal.
He better not, man. He better not.
What have you made then to Pedro Porro? What are we saying about him?
Undecided.
Good sometimes and then terrible others, right?
Yeah, I think on his debut, Tim Sherwood was a little bit harsh in what he said on Sky Sports. It was an awful debut. It was an awful day, full stop for us in that away to Leicester. He's not good defensively, which I think we knew when we got him, because he was brought in for a Conte system where he was just there to attack a little bit more. And in a back 3/back 5, the person he has covering him is Christian Romero, who is by far the best defender in our team. So it allowed him to have that extra bit of freedom and not really be burdened by the responsibility of the defensive actions. But in a back 4, he's just not good enough. And it's the same with Perisic on the other side. So I think Emerson and Davis are probably our best options here if we do go with the back 4 again. But there's no denying that Pedro Porro has an incredible amount of potential in him. He's at Sporting, he was phenomenal. He stood out in the 2 times we played them in the Champions League this season as their best player. He's incredibly quick. He's got a fantastic cross on him. He's already contributing with a couple of goals. He has a big future ahead of him, but he needs to be in a system that suits him more than the current Tottenham system does. But I also think you need to point out that he's been trying to adapt to a new formation, a new footballing style, a new culture, new weather, like an entire new country in one of the worst teams in England form-wise at the moment. So it's not been an easy transition for him. And I think if we give him a little bit more time, he can prove to be a very important player for us.
Mate, we've got to talk about... Oh, it's not showing me the rest of the squad. We've got to talk about Richarlison. You won the transfer window, people were saying, and you know, and just how bad as it's done that again. Sorry, Matt.
Do you want me to take the hint and head off?
I'm having a nightmare. But yeah, listen, talk to me about Richarlison. He's not a likable guy, you see. He's not a likable guy. So the fact he also has a tattoo of himself on Mount Rushmore on his back, which is insane, man.
Yeah, listen, I love the guy. I absolutely adore him, but only because he's playing for my club. No, I'll be honest, I didn't dislike him that much when he was at Everton. I absolutely adore him. But my God, he's bad at football. You know, it's the way he's played at Spurs. Look, it's harsh to say he's bad at football. I don't fully believe that, because look at what he did with Brazil in the World Cup. He was phenomenal. He's just a player who's been played out of position, and part of me kind of feels as though he was brought in to get him ready to be Kane's replacement, whether Kane leaves this summer or next summer, because as a number 9, Richarlison, he's better. It's as simple as that. He is better. Brazil with Everton, it's where he was at his best. He needs to wind his neck in a little bit until he starts scoring goals, because he's that's the one. That's the one. He had a goal disallowed. I think it was against Forest earlier in the season. He took the shirt off celebrating. He got booked. It was disallowed. I think he's had 3 goals this season that he's had disallowed, and then one against Liverpool, where we all know what happened there. There's potential there. I think it would be foolish to write him off at this point. He's only had a season, again, a very transitional season for him. It's been plagued with injuries. Had a World Cup in the middle, 3 changes of manager. But I think the majority of the frustration in the Tottenham fan base that is aimed towards him is maybe directed the wrong way, because we should have spent that 60 million on a centre half, but we spent it on Richarlison. So I think a lot of Spurs fans are looking at the fact that Richarlison's on the bench while Longley is starting left centre back, when we were being linked with and could have paid for an Alessandro Bastoni or Josko Vardiol. Whether or not they would have signed the contract is another question. But I do think that's where a lot of the anger towards Richarlison comes, and also the fact that he's getting game time ahead of Danjuma, where neither of them have earned it, but Richarlison has already had the opportunities.
Yeah, Danjuma seemed a bit of a strange one as well, right? Because you signed him from the clutches of Everton, and then, I mean, he's hardly got a look in. But Mason, he's played last few, right?
He's come on as a sub a few times, and he started the last game. But they both have the same amount of Premier League goals this season. They both have 1, and Richarlison's had a lot more game time, which I think says a lot. Yeah,
definitely. Just looking back at this, I think this probably will be the Leeds United lineup, if I'm honest. I think the only change, we might see Firpo come back in, but I'd probably prefer to have Strout there, if I'm honest. But yeah, is there anyone you look at in there, Matt, that you worried about from a Spurs perspective ahead of the weekend?
If we play Porro and a right back and a 4, Nanto will have a field day, because Porro's positioning is awful. He gets drawn into the attack way too much. If Romero is there to cover, we might be lucky. Whoever the right defensive mid, I'm not sure if it'll be Basuma. I can see us going with Højbjerg and Skip again in this one. But Nanto could have a field day down there. I'd be worried if he had a bit more height in that front line. Maybe Bamford would be a better option than Rodrigo, because we've been so poor defensively in the air this season. Romero himself is just bad at that anyway. But yeah, the pace of Nanto, if Power is out there, would be my biggest fear.
Yeah, would you? This sounds like a daft question, but would you take anyone from Leeds when the relegation's confirmed?
Am I allowed to say no? No, I'm joking.
No, of course, say no, man. Say no.
I was only having this chat yesterday with the Spurs fan. I'd take Nanto or Sinistera, because we need someone on the left hand side. You know, it's been Son's worst season.
Sinistera, he's brilliant. You know, for the bits that he's just been injured, and unfortunately, you know, he would have been like, not as good as Rafinha, but definitely like him in terms of whenever he has played, he's come up clutch. But like I say, he's just been injured too much. But yeah, he's a top player.
I've been watching a lot more of him from last season when I was looking into Arne Slot over the last few weeks, and he was phenomenal at Feyenoord. And I think what I was so impressed with as a player as young as him, he was so important in the tactical way that the Feyenoord tried to play, which shows a big understanding.
Like Slot, and then he'll bring Sinistera, and you were all getting excited.
I don't want to talk about it, Joe. Right? I wouldn't say no to Aronson either. I know it's kind of he's gone off the boil a little bit this season, but from the way he was at the start of the season, there's a player in there. There really is. It just hasn't worked out, but I wouldn't write him off.
Really? I'm ready to write him off. I'm ready to write him off.
Fine, I'll draw up the paperwork.
Yeah. He's it's interesting because it's quite funny that there's been a clip, not a clip, but like a screenshot doing the rounds, that he'd made a claim at the start of the season to say, I wanted to prove everyone wrong because no one said I was physically capable enough to play in the Premier League.
Oh, that's aged well. Oh, no.
And it's like, yeah. Even Leeds fans are quote tweeting us going, let us know when you've proved us wrong then. It's been quite funny, to be fair.
Oh, poor guy.
Right. So are you convinced then Leeds stay up? Or are you just saying that? Like, what's your...
I'm convinced
we'll beat you, but... Yeah. Who's staying up, in your opinion, out of Everton, Leicester and Leeds?
See, I think Bournemouth, now that they can play with the shackles off, as they have been for the last couple of weeks, they've been doing really well under Gary O'Neill, which hurts me to say because I despise Bournemouth Football Club.
Why?
But, Oh, they play in a shed, Joe. Why'd you play in a shed? At least have a little bit of character about you, like Luton, if you're going to play in a shed. I know. I just, yeah. Let's not get into it. But yeah, I think they can go and do a job in Everton. I think I liked what Gary O'Neill said during the week, where he said, for us, we're not thinking about the relegation battle. We're going out to get another win in the W column for us in the table. So I think they can do a job in Everton. And in terms of this game, I haven't seen Spurs play as bad as they are ever. Now, I've only been a Spurs fan really for about a decade, so it doesn't mean much. But I've spoken to Spurs fans who've been supporting for 40, 50, 60 years who've said the 80s or back end of the 80s and 90s is probably the last time it was this bad. We are playing atrocious football. And the worst part is we can go out against Brentford at the weekend, and the first half was phenomenal. We were pressing them until they.
I watched that game and I started to get worried, mate, because that was before we played West Ham, and I was going, "Oh God, no, I don't like the look of this." And then it went Spursy.
Exactly, that's what it was. In the first half of the season, we were awful in the first half and brilliant in the second half. It's completely flipped now. When the game starts to get away from us, we panic, and it's very much like Leeds, where we go back into our shell and we just start defending. And that's all we do. We defend and we kick the ball as far as we can. And we don't have the pace up top anymore.
You did it against Everton, You did it against Everton when Michael Keane scored. And I did the watch along of that game, and I'm going, Spurs, man! And Michael Keane scored that wonder strike, didn't he?
Yeah, I could list off 15 games this season where we've done it. Brentford being the most recent one. It's just the mentality of this team, and I feel like some of the players as well will be thinking it's Conference League. Very much like Conference League or no Conference League. For a player who was playing for Tottenham Hotspur, who should be at a big enough level, and financially, it's not much of a difference. It doesn't really mean anything. No. So I think they're completely on the beach, and Leeds just have a little bit more to play for at Ellen Road as well. The crowd are going to be up for it, and a day like this, that could be the difference.
Yeah. Like, I'm convinced we're going down, right? But I'm in a group chat, the 12th Man podcast, and a Wolves fan in there said, like, if Leeds United stay up, Joe will, like, literally go mad on stream. And I then started to think about it. I thought, and I don't want to get myself excited, but can you imagine, like, half-time or something, and everything's, like, Leeds are out of the bottom three? Like, I don't know if I could contain myself.
Do you know what? I usually watch Spurs watch-alongs, but I'll be watching you on Sunday, and that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be interesting. I've even got a little bottom of the table graphic so I can move the teams around.
Oh, I love it. Production value through the roof.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so we'll see. Knowing our luck, it'll just fucking remain the same.
Let's work for you, I suppose.
Yes, it is. But right, Matt, give us a score prediction then, pal.
I think we score because Harry Kane is Harry Kane, and he's having the best season of his career. It depends on what team we pick. If it's Romero, we have a chance. If it's Sanchez, we probably don't. I'll go 2-1 Leeds, and I genuinely believe that.
I think you'll beat us, mate. I think you'll beat us 2 or 3-0. I do. I just think there is no fight left in them. Luke Ayling's comments after the game I mean, we already knew we were knackered, but seeing him say that as well, basically saying we've got nothing left in us, it's like, all right, okay. So even with the crowd behind them, I just think if Tottenham score first, we'll crumble. We will absolutely crumble. And like Jamie said in the chat, basically, were West Ham on the beach? They should have been, but I mean, well, no, they were, man. The game were there for the taking, and we crumbled when they scored, and then they just ran away with it in the second half. They were having fun. We're going to get beat, I think, 3-0. It's minging to say. And we're going to finish 19th, which is minging. But yeah, it is what it is. Matt, where can people find you? Are you still doing the Tottenham blog? You don't seem to be doing as much, right?
Yeah, I kind of got back into it over the last few weeks. I kind of hibernate until the transfer window opens. So I've kind of been ramping up the content the last couple of weeks. My channel is Matt Hayes Tottenham blog, creatively named. If you want to see a Spurs fan crying for the summer, head over there and subscribe. Yeah,
do check out Matt. He's very, very knowledgeable, especially when it comes to the transfer stuff. He's like the Fabrizio Romano of the Spurs world. It's all right. His actual channel link is in the title, so if you just click it, it'll take you straight through. So please do that. And folks, I'm going to be back tonight, as is always the case, late night Leeds. That'll be the third video today, mate. Always grinding. And then tomorrow we've got the press conference ahead of our final game in the Premier League with Big Sam. So yeah, We'll see how that unfolds. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Make sure you go over and subscribe to Matt, and I will see you all in a couple of hours.